We're fortunate to have a VC panel of expert investors. Please allow me to quickly introduce them. Sergey Young, founder of the $100 million Longevity Vision Fund and sponsor of Longevity X Prize. Marton Dober, SVP and Managing Director at ID Ventures. Eric Marton, venture partner at Wavemaker 360 Health, Southern California's leading healthcare venture fund. Mark Thomann, managing partner of Spiral Sun Ventures. Sri Muthu, CEO and managing founder, HealthVenture. Dr. Sharad Mishra, investment advisor at MedStartr Ventures. Dr. Yoon Lee, managing director at BIC Technology Venture Development. Granville Ungerleider, president and member of the executive committee at NSIP, the GP of Ellington Healthcare Asset Management. Please allow me to now introduce Richard Hanbury, founder and CEO of Sana Health, a neuromodulation platform for pain and mental health relief. He developed the technology behind Sana to eradicate his own life-threatening pain problem following a spinal cord injury from a Jeep crash in 1992. The original benchtop device removed all his nerve damage pain in 3 months, saving his life. He has spent 25 years developing the Sana technology from the original benchtop device to the current device undergoing clinical trials. He has an MBA from the Wharton School and Diploma in Law from the College of Law, London. A little more about Sana Health. Sana uses pulsed light and sound and a heart rate variability feedback loop to guide the user into a deep state of relaxation. Clinical trials have just been completed in opioid user disorder and fibromyalgia. Sana is launching in fibromyalgia in 2020. Sana has raised over $12 million from top VCs such as the Founders Fund and SOSV, to name a few. On clinical process, the Duke studies on fibromyalgia is reported to be going well and is due to read out in Q1 next year. The mighty 1,000 person user test in fibromyalgia will aim to start the beginning of November. Mount Sinai study on neuropathic pain is going well, also due to read out in Q1. Aurora mental health study on treatment-resistant depression is through IRB and now in final contracting. Kaplan EEG pain study is starting October 5th. On FDA regulatory, they have positively received the 513G legal opinion from FDA confirming Sana as a device of general wellness for the purposes of rest and recovery. This is terrific news. Pre-submission with FDA confirmed the appropriateness of Duke trial protocol to lead to market approval for fibromyalgia indication. On market traction, on the military side, AFWERX Phase 2 has been submitted with Air Force Special Operations Command, supported with MOA for aircrew fatigue mitigation. A TBI grant application has been submitted in partnership with NFLAA and a position at Walter Reed. SOCOM is now progressing to the next stage regarding a paid-for-clinical trial, and with NATO, tests are underway or being organized with various branches of the Canadian, Hungarian, UK, and now Portuguese military. Positive data will result in NATO, Milmed COE recommending Sana purchases to all member nations for fatigue mitigation. On the commercial side, working with Novartis for drug-device combinations with Piqray and Cosentyx with an aim for investments after this round. In discussions with Boston Scientific to see data on neuropathic pain on the conclusion of the Mount Sinai study, and they are one of the Orexo Lifebulb Challenge finalists pitching later this month. There is an interest from Bose and Samsung. Wow. Without further ado, Richard, please take it away.
Well, yeah, thank you very much. At-home pain and mental health relief. Obviously, during this time of COVID, we've seen very, very sharp rises in mental health issues, anxiety and depression, meds selling, a 1.30% increase month on month. And obviously, new solutions are needed for at-home pain and mental health. I started this journey age 19, driving down a road in the Yemen, near the capital Sanaa, hence the company name. I was given a choice of a head-on collision next to a petrol truck or to go off a bridge. Went off the bridge, 60 foot down into a dry riverbed. The Jeep crumpled up like a Coke can, causing me a spinal injury from T8 to T10, an aortic tear, and TBI. I was medevac back to the UK, clinically dead for 8 minutes, into a coma, out of a coma. And all of that resulted in a nerve damage pain problem that was so severe I was given a 5-year life expectancy. So I was put through the standard of care, which really hasn't changed much in 28 years. Opioids, gabapentin, other drugs, the implantables, which there have been some improvements, but they haven't solved any fundamental issue, externals. And when all of that failed, they said, here, try some meditation. And for those of you that have either successfully or unsuccessfully tried some meditation, imagine that you get a greater present moment awareness when you're already in extremely high levels of pain. It's not a particularly good idea. I had an experience where I was watching a movie, which in contrast, when the movie was getting me into what we would now call a flow state, it lowered my pain levels. And at the end of the film, I thought, holy crap, that changed my pain levels more than morphine. And I now need to figure out a way of creating a neuromodulation device that will give me a signal that will produce that state at will whenever I want it. So that was the whole start of it. Why is this important now? Well, the 50 million people in America that suffer from chronic pain, opioids are the single course of the most important go-to, and this composites with the other mental health issues. So chronic pain has been really difficult to approach from a neuropsychiatric drug point of view, because chronic pain is a combined problem of multiple comorbidities. So pain, anxiety, sleep, and depression are the big four. Add on to that for PTSD when you're in conditions like fibromyalgia, and then a military context, add on traumatic brain injury. So you've got those 4 to 6 underlying issues, all of which feed off each other. So there isn't a single receptor site on a single cell to say, hey, let's point a novel drug at this receptor cell and solve this whole very deep mixed complexity of problems. So what we think is needed is an effective non-drug solution to pain and mental health issues, tailored to the individual, treating all the comorbid symptoms and non-addictive. And that's what we have developed. The device, and I'll come on to more how it works, but the device itself is generating very large amount of data, which we're combining with data that is being entered on an app, so a combination of subjective and objective data, which is enabling us to build the personalization in the next generation of the device. So what Sana is a audio-visual bio-therapeutic wearable. And what that means is that, so this is the current version of the device. You simply put it on, turn it on, and then you get into a reclined position or lying down, and you're seeing a pulse of light through closed eyes and hearing a sound in your ears. And those pulses of light and sound are very tightly coordinated and go through very specific sets of algorithms, which are designed to produce very specific effects within the brain. Essentially, we're using the auditory cortex and the visual cortex in order to get a very precise signal into the areas of the brain where we want that signal to be. So overall in clinical trials, 45% reduction in anxiety, which means that we are outperforming Xanax, 20 to 40% pain reduction depending on the indication, 49% reduction in depression, which means we're outperforming Prozac, and all of these with none of the side effects that you end up with the neuropsychiatric drugs. So how are we doing this? Well, when I started thinking about, okay, how do I create a stimulation that is going to produce the effect I want, I started thinking again about meditation. And I thought, well, okay, so there's no use where I am now, but had I already meditated for all of my life, and I had that experience, then I presumably would be able to change states of consciousness at will, which would be very useful. So I thought, okay, well, how does your brain change with long-term meditation? So luckily for me, there was already 50 years of Western EEG research into how meditation changes the brain. And there was a particular neuroscientist called Maxwell Cade who wrote a really great book called The Awakened Mind. And he showed how EEG patterns change with short, medium, and long-term meditation. So I bought his book. It was full of EEGs like the picture on the right here. So you're looking at left hemisphere of the brain versus right hemisphere of the brain. On a standard protocol, that goes through 6 different cognitive functions. All of the long-term meditators had a perfectly balanced EEG on this system in this way of looking at the brain. I bought the same system as him, tested mine. Mine showed a very big disparity between left and right hemispheres while I was in pain and during the rest. Well, I was in pain 24/7 back then. And so I was like, okay, here's my roadmap. Here's where I start. Here's where I need to end up. What I subsequently discovered was this left-right imbalance is a signature EEG profile that you get in pretty much all long-term chronic pain and chronic anxiety to lesser or larger degrees, but it's nearly always there. So audio-visual, because you've got 2 eyes and 2 ears, so 4 access points in the brain, you've actually got a very unique way of accessing this problem. So this is the only technology that I've discovered that you can actually fix this underlying challenge with. So we're restoring that hemispheric balance. The next generation of the device will create a closed-loop feedback system to carry on improving. So precision personalized medicine in real time. So the other methods of going about pain control. Opioids, clearly we all know what the problems are with opioids are. TENS machines, you're really only talking about helping with acute muscular pain and really not a lot else. Transcranial magnetic stimulation. Now here is one technology that has been able to address this hemispheric balance to some degree and has shown positive results in depression and some types of PTSD as a result. But the problem is you're stuck with a big machine in clinics. And anything you're doing with neuroplasticity, which is all of mental health and pain, involves frequency and intensity. So with a big magnet, you can get an intensity, but you can't use it on a regular basis such that you can get really good results. So hence why you need a device that anybody can use at home and use any day. Typical use of the device during our fibromyalgia study was 5 times a day at the start of the study when people were in an acute phase. So it's 5 times a day for 15 minutes at a time. And that tailored off to once a day as a maintenance dose after about 3 months. So yeah, fibromyalgia is a classic example of the failure of the neuropsychiatric drug route. The standard of care is take an individual drug for each individual compounding comorbidity you have and don't worry about side effects. It doesn't work. So as a contrast, in the first fibromyalgia study, we got a 3 times better improvement in quality of life than the best-selling drug, which is Lyrica. Now, Lyrica has such bad side effects that 80% of people stop taking it, and only 20% of people continue to take it, and we're 3 times better than the 20% it actually works for, with no side effects. We've maintained those results over a year, and 80% of the people who went into the trial continue to use the device, and we've got a 90% usage daily of the device at the year mark, and overall 30% drop in all pain rates. So fibromyalgia is our go-to-market. We will be the first FDA-cleared device for it. 10 million Americans are being diagnosed, probably another 5 to 10 undiagnosed. $50 a month subscription is what we're starting with. And if we just get to 2% of the sufferers of fibromyalgia, that gives us 100 million ARR. So we are in the process of doing a pivotal study at Mount Sinai. If we achieve a quarter of the effect size of our pilot, we will sail through this. The pivotal is also allowing us to do an in-depth health economic data summary to allow us to go after reimbursement in the middle of next year. Whilst we're doing that, we're also going to be doing a consumer user test where we're able to market fibromyalgia for this study and then see the willingness to pay out of pocket that initial $50 per month. And this enables us to get significant amounts of revenue while we are pursuing the reimbursement pathway and then run the 2 in parallel. So we are going direct to consumer, we're going via physician recommendation and through reimbursement as well. And again, just the basic economics, $50 a month subscription, $75 COGS at scale, which will be around about July next year. And then that gets us to over 100 million ARR, just on the 2% of fibromyalgia patients. But fibromyalgia is just the start. This chart here is our clinical pipeline. We've completed the opioid addiction study and the first fibromyalgia study. We have a neuropathic pain study going on at Mount Sinai. That will read out just after the fibromyalgia study at Duke. So the fibromyalgia study at Duke will give us a de novo in fibromyalgia, and then the neuropathic pain will be a 510K, a self-predicated 510K on top of that. Then we have a mental health study. We are working through the mechanics at the moment with a lower back pain study with Anthem, because they want to bundle us as a solution to lower the numbers of people having back pain surgery. And then post-op pain is probably the last really important one. And that's going to happen at Penn. And that's looking at total knee replacements and reducing pain in the hospital post-surgery, which then is a very big advantage to the hospital's bottom line, because people will leave the hospital earlier. So funds raised since inception, 11 million in previous rounds. And here are some of the people who have invested. The current raise is 5 million, of which we've closed on 2, and we have 3 million open. It's a 20 million pre, and because of a safe note round, it'll end up as a 29 million post. Use of proceeds is to get us through the 2 major trials that have started. The 1,000-person user study. What I didn't tell you about was that the Mighty is a patient advocacy group that has 3 million subscribers, 286,000 of which are fibromyalgia patients. We are doing that 1,000-person study with them to their fibromyalgia community, and that's when we're starting the D2C rollout while we're doing the reimbursement data. So the Mighty study, the two clinical studies underway, and reducing COGS are the key milestones before the Series A. The Series A would be roughly 10 to 12 million in August or September next year, and that would get us to cash flow positive in May 2022. So that's the roadmap. I can come back to some of this, but patent-wise, this chart is now out of date, because as of yesterday, we've been told that our second patent is also just about to be issued. So the first patent that was issued in June last year covers the use of combined audio and visual stimulation for the laundry list of every neurological indication that we could think of. So that was passed middle last year. The second patent covers how we are creating a closed loop feedback system on top of that. So that patent will cover any audio, visual, or tactile stimulation on the head for the purpose of changing any patterns in the brain. Third, fourth, fifth, and sixth patents all widen the claims of patent 1 in individual areas. And usually that widening is to do with audio or visual stimulation, or the combination of the two, because no one's really done things like you used even just sound for the treatment of pain or light, let alone the combination. Team, I've been at this for 28 years total. The real reason why we weren't able to properly relaunch until 2015 was the early device with laptops, wires, boxes, and it wasn't possible to automate it until 2014, 2015, 2016, when wearable technology finally caught up with what I wanted to produce. And specifically, sensor technology got to a point where I realized that I could potentially in the next couple of years build a standalone device. So I relaunched the company without the tech quite being there to do what I wanted to do, but it is now. And in this device now, that is a sensor in the middle of the forehead that is collecting the data. Tasha Bond is my COO. She's had 20 years of medtech experience and 4 successful exits. One of those exits was with Steve Sanders, He's been CFO at a startup that exited, and an acquirer, and a VC. So he's been on all three sides of that triangle. And then Jeff Bauer, our VP of Analytics, we inherited him from Achille Neuroscience, who are the leader in the neuroscience and FDA data space. So yeah, that's my pitch, and I'm looking forward to questions.
What's the clinical mechanism for action for this device?
So the underlying mode of action is audio and visual evoked response. So we are stimulating the brain at the frequencies which we want the brain to be in, and then that is then triggering the production of specific frequency patterns in the brain. So opioids, as an example, opioids produce a low delta wave frequency at 0.5 hertz as one of the ways in which they break up the neural pathways that trigger pain. We are working at 7.8 hertz, then 3 hertz, then 1 hertz. So that's where we are at the moment on the sort of overall mechanism of action. On the sort of more specific parts of it, there is some recent work on PET scans at fibromyalgia that show up in so far showing up in a lot of other chronic pain areas, where that chronic pain is being linked to specific areas of cerebral swelling. And we in future will go on to studies that look at whether we are actually directly reducing that swelling in those particular areas. We are also just doing a mechanism of action study right now on confirming all the early EEG work that we did previously on how that hemispheric balance relates to improvement in pain levels. That study is underway as of yesterday, actually.
And the clinical studies that you did for the EEG part and the opioid trial and the first one, what was the end on those?
So the EEG was all the EEG stuff that was done before was something like just north of 1,300 individual EEGs. It wasn't a standalone study; it was just a very large amount of one-on-one data collection. The opioid use disorder was 8 and 8. So it was a 16-person crossover study in clinic. We put the opioid addicts, we put methadone addicts into full cold turkey withdrawal within a rehab facility. The first fibromyalgia study was 20 people. We actually hit the primary and all the secondary endpoints in each sub-cohort of 10. We submitted it to the FDA. And they said, yeah, we told you we didn't care what your N was, but we meant we don't care what your N was as long as it's more than 120. So the pivotal study at Duke is 120. The Mount Sinai study is also 120. The Mighty study is going to be 1,000 one-arm study because that's not to prove efficacy because, again, in the Duke study, if we get a quarter of the effect size we did on the pilot, we are home dry. The 1,000-person study is to prove out the willingness to pay out of pocket and also see if we can get some subgrouping to figure out which is the 15% we're not helping and why. And can we exclude them before they start, or can we figure out how to help them? That's the purpose of the 1,000-person study.
Thanks.
Mark Thomann here. Richard, really great personal story. Thank you for sharing that. Do you find that big pharma might be an obstacle at all to your progression and growth?
I thought they were going to be to start off with, and it's turned out to be pretty much the opposite. The first thing that happened was obviously the opioid crisis took every opioid producer away from even caring about alternatives to looking after themselves and staying in business. The discussions I had with Novartis, I actually pitched them because I knew that Piqray, which is potentially a cancer blockbusting drug, the biggest reason for non-compliance is the drug increases anxiety. So I just pitched them and said, look, if you did a drug device combo, if we improve your compliance rate by 1%, then you are pocketing an extra $4 million to your bottom line, and you're paying us $6 And for every additional 1% of compliance, you're pocketing a further $10 million. And that got their attention, and then since then they've widened that discussion to Cosentyx, to some new MS drugs that they're developing. So really, I think that's probably what's going to happen, is we're going to be seen as, oh, these guys can potentially help us increase sales by increasing compliance. And we had a similar discussion with Boston Scientific on the spinal cord stimulators, because the spinal cord stimulators are all dealing with peripheral pain, and we are dealing entirely with central mediation. So a combination of reducing central mediation plus solving peripheral pain is potentially then also a really good avenue forward. And with them, they were like, yeah, if your Mount Sinai data on neuropathic pain comes out like you expect, we want to continue that discussion. So yeah, I'm not seeing any blockage. I mean, I did worry about Lyrica, and I did worry about going head to head with Lyrica. I actually went to Pfizer and I discussed it with them, and basically the answer was, now that Lyrica is off patent, it's moved into a department where we don't invest time and money and people in it. So we wouldn't do a drug device combo. But the way in which they told me how they apportion resources to drugs that are off out of patent made me realize that they're not going to care. And I couldn't make them care either from a positive side or worry about them caring from a negative side. So I don't see any of them as an issue. The other area where we're getting really good interest on drug device combos is from the psychedelic pharma space. And our lead for this round is a VC that specializes in psychedelic pharma. And there you've got two components to it. You've got the microdosing component, which is going to have a long regulatory pathway to get to market. And then you've got the high dose under controlled settings with a therapist, which is going to be the first to market within that space. And they've got a challenge of they're producing a very large amount of neuroplasticity, and then they're sending people home with nothing. And so we solve that problem with them. So that's another area where use that drug and then send someone home with us makes sense. So I've seen a hell of a lot more opportunities for collaborations, and so far haven't had anybody say anything negative or produce any big risks. But originally I did worry about it for the reasons you suggested. But depression might be a challenge. That might be an area where we are a direct threat, and therefore we have to tread very carefully. But we're going after treatment-resistant depression first, so I don't think in that space we've got a challenge.
Thank you.
That was very well.
No, it's great answer, made sense, and I appreciate it.
And I was going to say, I'm involved with a couple of, ketamine-assisted psychotherapy providers, and I think this is a perfect device for them, as you said, for maintenance phases and things like that. So have you actually engaged with certain providers like that? Are you planning any studies on those lines?
So we started we started a discussion with Compass Pathways just before their IPO, and that was put on hold. That's restarting. That discussion's restarting now. And MindMed is the other one that we have had longer discussions with. MindMed is specifically interested in the OUD space, the opioid use disorder space, and for us that's great because as a startup and really, I don't know, pre-series C, shall we say, it's not a good market for a startup to go after because you're talking about sales teams going around clinics. So we basically said, okay, we're going to stay out of the opioid use disorder space unless we have a partner that is willing to take on that distribution challenge, because we're not large enough to make it worthwhile or make the risk profile worthwhile. But yeah, we're definitely open to discussing more in different areas. We are hoping to have a PTSD grant come out to us from MTech, which is of the DoD. And because we did an open call, they said we're releasing grant application based on your open call. Please make sure you reply quickly. And that will then be a PTSD trial at Yale with New Haven Stress Clinic. And that'll be two parts. One will be using it as part of assisted therapy, and hopefully we'll be able to find a way in that to include use of some of a psychedelic. And then the other side of it is the sort of cheap mass market side of PTSD to all of the VA audience that doesn't get high quality care because they can't, the system can't afford it and doesn't have the trained people for it. But they are getting things like group therapy, yoga, Pilates, you name it. There's a lot of stuff done through the VA to support veterans of PTSD that is done in group settings. And the secondary part of our study is, okay, can we help those people who are not actually getting direct therapy but are doing other things that are administered cheaply? So it's kind of a dual strategy. I love all the stuff that's being done directly with things like ketamine. I'm just a little bit of skeptic of how it can be rolled out until there are more resources available on the VA side. On the non-VA side, I totally, it's awesome. It's going to be, the Rolls-Royce way of doing it. I can't imagine in 10, 15 years time why people would do therapy without having it drug assisted, seeing as how much quicker you can achieve stuff.
So,
sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Just a quick one. So, there's been a lot of diagnostic types of modalities similar to this, like visual, evoked responses, VER, BAER, SCP. I wonder how much you've looked into using your device, which is similar in technology, and creating a feedback loop of saying, okay, here's actual diagnostics on pain, and here's, how much we're giving you. Is that part of what you built into your tech?
So at the moment, anything, as I'm sure you know, going into the FDA is the only things that matter for diagnosis of pain are VAS and pain scale and validated pain scorings and questionnaires. So that's what we've focused on so far. But the fact that on every use of the device, we are collecting HRV data and we're collecting the subjective experience, combining those two data sets should end up with us having a better measure of pain than most of the things currently available. There are EEG methods of tracking pain that are being developed that might end up as sort of a gold standard, but for at-home use, the data we're collecting in terms of HRV plus the subjective should end up with us being able to be diagnostics in pain and possibly in anxiety and depression as well. That's a little ways off, but you should be collecting a very large data set going into 2022. 2021 will be down at we've got about a maximum of 3,000 devices we'll do next year. Because we need to develop the next generation of the device to lower the COGS to be able to scale up in a cash efficient way. But as soon as that scale up starts, we'll have a very, very big and growing database combining those objective and subjective measures. So yeah, hopefully we will end up being able to be somewhat diagnostic.
Richard, in the quest for reimbursement, are there devices out there in the market that have set precedent? And if so, what's the reimbursement range that seems realistic?
Yeah, I mean, there are devices like the H-Wave, which is a sort of complex TENS type device that's $4,000 on the reimbursement side. We had a very long discussion with Anthem this week, going through all of their data on back pain claims. But again, with them, we're targeting the $100 a month. And they showed us very clearly that they need to show their member companies, their member subscribers, a 2x ROI. So if we reduce back surgery, the risk of back surgery by about 20%, we then hit the 2x ROI at $100 a month. So we're pretty solid that we should be able to do the $100 a month with them. There'll be a question about duration, and that question will probably be answered per indication. because something like fibromyalgia you have for life. Something like back pain, you could not have it after if you've been chronic for years, it could take a year, and then after that you're free of it. So the length of time is the question mark at the moment. But I think we're pretty solid around that $100 a month mark.
Great, thank you.
I just have a couple of questions, one comment and one question about valuation. Your last series, what was the post-money valuation on that?
Including the increased option pool and everything, it was 19. So we just did a small update.
And my comment, I guess, is reasonable valuation, frankly. Did you have to think through that at all during this crisis, as far as just making it more reasonable? Because it is in my opinion, it's based on your partnerships and your studies and so forth. You've done a lot of great work to justify what you're asking for. And did the valuation, did you have any impact in your thinking to make it more reasonable just because of what's going on today in the world?
No, we didn't actually, because I think COVID has worked in two ways. One, it has made the investment arena a bit harder, but at the same time, it has really heavily amplified the need. And so it's kind of where COVID is taken away with one hand, it's kind of given with the other. So we haven't tried to change it. We will try and maximize the price on the next round. Because we will have 2 FDA approvals and we will have the proof of route to market. And the sort of 3 comparables on that would be Achilles, Pear and Carla Health, all of which were in the sort of 150 million free when they were at that stage. So, we're at the moment saying, 40 to 50 is the pre for the next round, but 3 comparables that we should be being compared to are massively higher than that. So I don't think, even if the economic situation stays dicey for the next year or so, I think we should still be, the reason for keeping the price where it is now is to make it so that the next round is still a nice uptick.
Hi, Richard. This is Yun Li. I have a couple questions. One is about your user experience, right? So if you take a pill, keep my pain frame for 12 hours. So when people put the device on, how long it takes them to get to a place that they feel the pain relief? Then how long that will last, right? That's my question, number 1. Number 2 is about your business model. Kind of the question I think Eric asked about your reimbursement. I think your device might be able to can be reimbursed. I don't know how can you approach the insurance company for monthly user fee. I have never heard of that, but that's kind of interesting. Anyway, just 2 questions.
Yeah. Okay. So on the first one, it depends on the type of pain indication. All pain is a combination of central mediation and peripheral pain. Obviously, people have different terminologies that they like for that equation, but that's the kind of terminology I like. We are dealing with entirely the central mediation part. So with me, because my pain was spinal cord injury plus TBI, it was entirely central mediation. I didn't really actually have a pain signal coming up from my spine. I had a corrupted data stream similar to if you've got phantom limb. With me, it wiped out all of the pain completely, so I never had to use the device again. I ended up as I'm a health and wellness user. Every time I fly long haul, every time I'm a bit stressed, or I was in surgery earlier this year for quite a major surgery, and I was using it immediately post-surgery to help speed my rehab. So that's one end of the spectrum. The other end of the spectrum is something like chronic regional pain syndrome, where you've got a very nasty peripheral pain signal and a small amount of central mediation exacerbating that. On the CRPS end, basically we had people using up to 4 hours a day initially, and then stabilizing about an hour a day, so 4 times a day, keeping their pain under control relative to what the device can do, which is at the top end was about 30%. And then if they stopped using the device over about a month, their pain levels went back to where they were previously. The fibromyalgia is somewhere in the middle, where what's now happened after, now we're at a year's mark, is that people are still using once a day, and that is the sort of the dose that's keeping it properly under control. In terms of how quickly you see a result when you start using the device, it's usually by about the end of the second minute, beginning of the third minute, is when you start to feel a level of relaxation. So that's the kind of range, and by indication, some people are getting sort of 4 or 5 hours off 15 minutes, and some people are getting up to a day. Does that answer the usage question?
Yes, sounds to me people have to adjust their own dose per se. They have their different doses. They have to try out and figure that one out for themselves.
Yes, that's right.
I got that. That makes sense. Another question, my second question is about, so something to do with my first question, right? So if you charge people for $50 a month, if just like your situation, you use the ones, the problem solved, so they don't have to pay the monthly fee, I guess. And how much your device cost, you charge?
Yes, so with me it was 3 months of daily use before it removed all the pain. But if someone had said afterwards, "I'm going to take this away and never let you use it again," I would not have been happy about it. Because once you've used a tool that helps you, you don't want to give it back. But it is an interesting area. And Anthem, we've gone through discussions already about, would they pay a one-off purchase price or would they pay a monthly subscription? That seemed to depend on indication as well, as to which they want to do. Post-op pain in hospital would definitely be a purchase, because we're getting the massive amount of benefit in the month prior to surgery and the month afterwards, and then it's tailing off quite rapidly. And then something like fibro, the advantage, the benefit you're getting is carrying on year by year. So we're going to be flexible as to just what makes sense in each area. Anthem on back pain, basically the figures were quite astonishing when I saw them this week. The health utilization post back surgery actually rises very slightly from what it is before. So if you're going in for back surgery, and the average back surgery costs $40,000, the ROI is zero, literally zero. So anytime someone's going for a back surgery, the doctor should be saying, this might help you or it might make you worse, because the numbers are really clear. They showed us the whole data set. And I was astonished. I was like, so why is anybody still doing back surgeries if on average it's actually making people very slightly worse? And they said, well, because otherwise they will go to a competitor. And so we still have to offer it. So that's an area where they're trying to fix things very quickly. And they've said that they are willing to reimburse us as part of a bundle prior to FDA approval, just on the strength of the clinical study that they want us to do, if it gives them the results that they want. And they will reimburse it as a wellness device, and then just change over the reimbursement when we get the subpredicate 510K for lower back pain based on the results of that trial. On fibromyalgia, with both them and with Harvard Pilgrim, because those are the two we've had the closest relationship with, they have both said it's peer-reviewed, published data, and then they'll have that discussion. What was the other bit of your question? Sorry, there was another bit which
you kind of already answered it. It's very broad. My question was very broad. But anyway, thank you. I really like the direction for pain management. because it's huge market and much needed. And maybe for some indication, like you said, it could be a complementary to the drug, depend on the indication. So I get that now. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, so much. And thank you, everyone, for your questions. This has been just a tremendous session with really, really interesting conversation.